All right, welcome to another Friday night episode of Keto Rocks Radio. We're your hosts, Jim Hobbs, and I think below me or to the left or right is Brian Damage Forsythe of Kix. He's around everywhere, everybody. Happy New Year, everybody. And we have a special guest with us tonight, and I'll let him explain how and why he's here. But I think you're going to gain a lot of knowledge and be inspired by his life and the journey that he's living. And I think just the life that he's living and what he's willing to share with you all out there in the audience tonight is going to be very inspirational. So sit back, relax, and get ready to be inspired. So let me introduce Mr. Billy Willis from Delaware. Welcome, Billy.
Hello, sir. Hello, Brian.
Hey.
Pleasure to be here. Thank you.
So why don't you tell a little bit about how you know Brian and a little bit about your journey and what led to your connection with Brian and where you are now, and give people a little bit of a background of what started you on this journey.
I met Brian through a guitar lesson. My son suggested that you go have some fun, go get a guitar lesson from Brian. And I was like, you know what, I'll check it out, see what it's about. It was a good time. And when I walked in, he was like, I'd known him for a long time. He never looked me up one side and down the other because of my size. He wasn't judgmental. We had a good time, and started paying attention to, like, following his social media a little bit closer, and said, you know, here's this guy. He's posting meals that I was envious of, and he's eating twice as much as me and wasn't getting fat. So I started following him and started, you know, reading some of the links he would post and watching some of the videos, and the stuff started hitting home for me. And then going back to what I'd been through, I guess starting back in like 87, I found out I had a hereditary disease called familial adenomatous polyposis. It's a hereditary disease of the large bowel that causes cancer. It's not a chance of it will turn to cancer. So I had to have that removed. It gave me sort of a short bowel syndrome. The doctors were like, you got to eat fruits, you got to eat vegetables, low fat, pasta, rice, eat bland, eat this. And all this stuff was just loaded with processed foods, carbs, and sugars. I mean, it was just packing the weight on me. It was bloating me. You're making me miserable. And that's 18 years old at a time when you're supposed to be running around with your friends and having a good time. And it was just embarrassing. And turned 21 and you're out drinking and partying, and you know, you've been there. It's just miserable when you're trying to go through that and trying to live a normal life like the rest of your friends. I just kept getting fatter and fatter, more tired, going into my early 30s, started, you know, sugar problems, sleep apnea problems.
Hey, Billy, can I interject here for a second? So
Absolutely.
you're under doctor care during this time. What are they saying to the fact that your weight keeps increasing? What is their diagnosis of you? What are they saying they can do for you?
They're saying, well, you know, they're basically blaming me. You know, it's you know, how much are you drinking? A little, doc. I'm not going to lie to you, but no more than my friend is, and he's not gaining any weight. You know, he doesn't feel this way. So a lot of the times the doctor's like, you're not eating right, and I would give it a try, but I'm like, doc, you know, broccoli, asparagus, sounds good, looks good, but it's I'm laying in bed in pain, or it blows right through me. You know, to be graphic, it's not agreeing with me, doc. So what do you want me to do? Okay, I'll eat some chicken soup. You know, chicken soup isn't as healthy as it sounds, you know, especially when it's loaded with egg noodles, you know? So I felt like they were blaming me. You know, they were blaming my lifestyle instead of looking into seeing, well, maybe this kid's got some other problems.
Right. No, I asked you that question because I want to know what the professional point of view is when they're seeing somebody that's under their care, not your own care. You're under a doctor's care, and yet your numbers and your weight's going in the wrong direction. Yet you're following, for the majority, you're following their advice as much as you humanly can.
Yeah.
But that's what Dr. Berry talks about, that how they recommend the standard American diet, but they say and exercise more and this and that, and portion control and this and that, and then when it doesn't work, that's what they do. They assume it's the person that's not following their directions, but that's the problem. The person is following their direction. It's just their directions are the wrong directions.
Oh, it's absolutely, and it comes out that it was the protein. It was about the size of my thumb. You know what I mean? It's like that's not going to do nothing for nobody.
So let's fast forward a little bit. So what I mean, you already said how you saw Brian's, you took guitar lessons, you started seeing his following on social media, but what led you to make that decision, or what led you to look outside of doctor's care? Because most people in America, when they're under a doctor's care, that's who they're trusting. They're putting their life in the care of a doctor, because that doctor's gone to medical school and supposedly has all the answers for them. But when you're following a doctor's advice and it's not working, how do you feel as the patient who's going backwards? How are you feeling at this time? Are you feeling hopeless? You're feeling like, I don't know what else I can do?
I felt ripped off because every time you go see this doctor, I'm paying him to, to tell me what's the matter. You're paying a copay and you're paying a doctor bill, and it's like, are you exercising? Yeah, doc, I am. It's, you taking your medicine? You must be skipping your dosages. I'm like, yeah, doc, you raised it up last time and it didn't do anything. And I felt hopeless is a good way to put it, but I felt ripped off too.
Right. Yeah. And I say that because, and we've said this from the beginning, and it's the perfect example that you have to be your own physician. You have to be your own researcher. You have to go out there and find a way for you to feel better. You can't rely on somebody that, because they went to medical school and have MD in front of their name. Because your situation is a perfect example of somebody who's been under doctor care from a young age, and yet the results you're achieving are the opposite of what you want to achieve, and you're feeling worse about yourself.
Oh, absolutely. And this was also just at the dawn of the internet. So we didn't have a lot of internet. I couldn't jump on and Google my symptoms. So I had to get books. I had to, late night infomercials. There was a guy pushing the Atkins diet, and he's making it sound easy. He's like, you're going to eat steak, you're going to eat bacon, you're going to eat eggs. And then the next thing you know, you're buying the Atkins cookies and the Atkins, you know what I mean? And that stuff, that's full of sugar alcohols, and that tears me up.
So, that will blow. Yeah, that will mess you up.
So I had no way to research until later on, after I started having heart surgeries, and things really started falling off the rails on me.
At your worst, how much did you weigh, Billy?
406. That was my absolute rock bottom. That was I had lymphedema. I had sleep apnea. I had diabetes going on. I had an A1C of over 8. I was probably about 9 pills a day of different medications. I'm putting myself in a lymphatic pump twice a day just to keep the swelling and the fluid out of my legs. That was my absolute rock bottom.
And how long ago was that?
I want to say about two and a half years ago.
Wow.
Yep.
Now, since you have started following Brian and following how his eating and his dietary and his carnivore lifestyle, what part of his life have you incorporated in your life?
Brian, he's mild. He doesn't get mad that I've ever seen. When I first walked in there, he didn't look me up and down. He was one of the few people in my life that hasn't looked at me, looked down at my gut, and looked me up and down. He never once did that to me. So I immediately felt comfortable. We had our guitar lesson. A lot of common music interest. Taught me a lot. Just in theory, it was a good lesson. I had a good time, and I left there feeling a little bit better that I got to do something fun for a change. So, obviously I'm, following him, and it started noticing more of his lifestyle than his music, that I was taking interest in. And I just started doing things a little bit, like him. Like he'd post a video and I'd go watch it. And I'm like, well, let me try that for a week. And I started feeling better. My energy started coming up. The weight initially dropped off really good. I could put my own shoes on. I was using a lymphatic pump less and less. It's just, the differences are amazing. It's, I didn't have to go to the bathroom at all as much as I did in the past. So the water retention had almost stopped. So that was to me was a major accomplishment right there. I didn't care about the weight. And then I started having blood labs done and they're coming down and I'm like, doc, and now my blood labs are showing that I have too much of this and too much of that. So they started taking me off of pills. Then I started watching some of Dr. Barry's videos, some of Brian's recommendations, and there's pills that I'm taking that were probably the culprit of some of my problems. And I went to the doctors and I said, I want to stop taking these pills. Now I have my own research. Now I'm arming myself with information. I don't want to take this pill no more. I'm going to stop taking this pill.
What was their response to that statement?
He's like, one doctor's like, okay, well, let's check it out. Let's see what it's about. I'll give you 6 weeks. Let's run some labs. And he was open to it. And another doctor was like, no, you can't do that. And I'm like, why? It's the numbers are not lying. My labs are not lying. So now I had a cardiologist. I have an endocrinologist. I have a family physician. I had, I don't even know the name of the doctor that was monitoring the veins in my legs and all the lymphatic stuff. And I'm trying to get them all to talk to each other. And it's hard to get doctors to agree. It really is. So it's just, the differences that last 2 years has been amazing.
So did you start more of a carnivore lifestyle or a keto? Did you start eating meats or did you incorporate a keto lifestyle or more of a carnivore lifestyle?
When I first started, I was more of a keto. I got rid of anything white. The only thing white I would eat was cauliflower. I got rid of rice, pastas, anything that if it was in a box, I did not eat it. If it comes in a box, there's nothing healthy about it. And then I started shopping the outside of the grocery store. I wouldn't go up and down any aisles. And that made a big difference. I'd like a big, gigantic, cool crisp salad. Even still, I do. It's a lot of fiber, but I save up, and if I use the right oils and vinegars and stuff like that, it's a treat for me.
Gotcha. So what kind of meals, tell everybody that's watching what kind of meals you had, like what kind of food did you start incorporated in your diet? What were you eating then?
I would eat, and it was like usually a red meat, a fish, a chicken. It was a good fatty protein. And then I would have something that was really low on the glycemic index, asparagus, broccoli, a green leafy salad with olive oil, and it was stuff like that. It's mostly like steak and pork chops, chicken, just throw it on the grill, saute it in a pan, that type of, those kind of bacon. Oh,
Bacon.
I buy bacon by the case. I'm not going to lie to you.
No, I'm with you.
So, but I just, the fattier, the better. The fattier a meal, the better I feel. Is that a word?
It can be.
Yeah, but it's been an emotional journey. It really has. I'm plateaued right now. It's just, but when I take the labs that I had 2.5 years ago and the labs I'm having now, I'll take that as progress, So I mean,
Right.
Yeah, what's your A1C now? You said your A1C was 8.1 before.
6.1 now.
That's awesome. Going in the
6'1".
right direction.
Yes. And there's so many other labs and panels that they take that I'm still learning to understand. But the main one I pay attention to is that A1C and the cholesterol, which the one doctor saw the cholesterol and he wanted me to put me on is it a torvastatin or some type of, wanted to put me on it. And I'm like, why? And he's like, well, your cholesterol. I'm like, well, and then I took a tool that Brian taught me, and you do some math, and it's an overall, it's the ratio. It's just, if it's high, how did you put it, Brian? It's whatever the aspect of one to the other. It's the ratio of the two.
Yeah, the triglycerides and the HDL. Yeah. If they're in the right spot, then the other, anything else around it really, yeah.
And so I mean, the doctor, I'm like, if you're so worried, doc, let's do some heart tests. So they did a stress test, and I passed flying colors. He said you're fine. And then I had to have another one. I guess just prior to Christmas, I had an elbow surgery, and the surgeon was like, "You sure this is for you?" And I'm like, "I need the surgery, doc. My arms feel like it's broke." So he made me go through another stress test, and it was even better than the one I had before.
Wow,
so
that's awesome.
I take it as progress. I mean, it's
yeah.
I don't like the dude in the mirror. I don't like the looks of me, but I like the way I'm going.
Look, it's more important what's inside of you, and those numbers are reflecting what's inside of you. And so as long as they are going in the right direction, the outward stuff will take care of itself on its own.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, now you had mentioned intermittent fasting, that you're struggling with that.
That's my nemesis.
But I've been doing it so long, it's kind of second nature now, but I do, every once in a while I'll have one of those things like you're talking about where all of a sudden I'll get just really hungry all of a sudden. But what I found is I just ride it out, and like 20 minutes later I'm like, I've forgotten about it, and I go, oh wow, like I was starving. I thought I was starving, and now I'm like, it's gone. And I think it's just a little, like a hump you got to get over.
It's definitely a plateau. Like fasting to me is how quick I can get out of the shower and into the kitchen to make something to eat.
Right.
It's but then I'll wake up and I'm like, I'm hungry. I'm really, really hungry. And I'll go and I'll get a big steak and I'll cook it perfectly. And it looks like something that should be in a magazine, like one of yours. And I sit down and I cut into that first bite and I take a bite. And all of a sudden, just all the desire to eat it just goes away. And I'm like, I don't want this. And it's, I don't know if it's boredom of the diet. I could eat a whole cheesecake or a box of cookies at that point. I don't do that, but I have a desire to eat something else. And I have to physically force myself to eat that portion of meat. So I'm not hungry the rest of the day. So,
but even though you don't feel like eating it, you're still hungry?
I think I'm hungry. I mean, do you think maybe I'm just bored? I don't know.
Well, it could be something, because that's what I learned. The first thing that I learned when I started doing intermittent fasting was how many times a day that I would eat out of habit when I wasn't really hungry. And, right at the beginning, I would still get those where it hit me, like I'd want to go out to the kitchen and grab something, and it'd always be like mid-evening, like after I'd eaten my dinner, before bedtime, somewhere in there. And I was in this habit of like getting up and going out and grabbing some crackers or putting peanut butter and jelly on them, that kind of thing. And then after I got on this keto thing and then started doing the intermittent fasting, I would still get those urges, and I'd even get up and walk in there. And then I'd stand there and I'd think, well, I'm fasting, so I can't eat right now. And then I'd like think a little further and I'd go, wow, you know what? I'm really actually not hungry. It's just this habit of me wanting something at this point in the day. And it has nothing to do with hunger, really. It's more about putting something else off, like procrastinating or being bored, or sometimes I have this thing with the phone where I hate talking on the phone. It's like it's stressful for me. So sometimes when I have to talk on the phone and I get off the phone, I want to go to the kitchen and eat something. And so many times intermittent fasting has saved me in those situations, because it's like, well, I can't eat now. I'm in fasting mode. It's almost like it gets you out of that. It takes you away from that that trigger and that habit.
And now that you mentioned that, back when I had my heart surgery, the quadruple bypass, and I was seeing nutritionists, if you want to call them that, they were like, you really should eat 6 small meals a day. And I'm like, and I thought, okay, I like to eat. I mean, but I mean, I would eat, and then I'm looking forward to the next time I was eating. And 6 times, it's hard to eat 6 times a day without eating junk.
And then when you do eat the junk, you do want to eat all day, and then you're going, oh, this is what they wanted me to do. So
yeah, and that's coming from a trained professional.
Oh, I know.
Yeah, and that's weird the way they try to tell you to do that, because that just keeps your insulin levels up all the time. That never gives them a chance to relax, you know?
Yeah, and I'm right now, I am doing a little bit of struggling with the insulin levels. I just prior to my last surgery on my elbow, it was 119, and I had a couple banana cookies, Brian. I think I shared that with you. Would it go into the 400s?
Yeah, you told me.
I was like, ooh, and that's when I'm like, okay, I'm not built. I can't have a treat. I can't have a snack. This has got to be a lifestyle. It's you know,
It has to be, you know. And one of the things, Billy, I'll just share with you, and I'll share with everybody else. You know, Peggy and I went away this past weekend for her birthday and New Year's, and we were with a group of our friends, and so we were at a Airbnb, and you know, of course, everybody gets up in the morning at 9 o'clock and they have a big breakfast there to serve for you. Then everybody wants to go grab lunch at 12 o'clock, and then they prepare dinner for you. And, you know, it's one of those things that when you're away from your environment, which Peggy and I were, and our routine, you know, we didn't want to be rude. So we ate breakfast, and then we would eat a dinner. So we were eating twice as much as we normally do. And it's amazing how you just get into that routine for 2 or 3 days, how then you start to want to be back in that routine. But the numbers don't lie, Billy. You know, we came back and our numbers had gone up. And we said to ourselves, look, we can't wait to get home, because we want to get back into our 1 meal a day in our eating window, our intermittent fasting. And we started that when we got back on Monday. And it's amazing how much better you feel, how much clarity you have in your mind, and more important, how you just don't feel bloated. It's being bloated and just not feeling at your optimal, you know, performance level, and it starts to weigh on you. And regards of when someone, like you said, a professional telling you, and they told me that way back, that I needed to start eating smaller portions 5 to 7 times a day. And the reality of it is you're just putting stress on your body for the whole day, and it never gets a chance to really recover from what they're doing. So, you know, the fact that and I'm like Brian, so, you know, one of the things that I do, because I'm like Brian, I go walk in the kitchen after, you know, dinner and before I'm really ready to fall asleep in bed, and, you know, open the refrigerator and I want to snack on something, but you know, I'll just get myself a glass of water and down a whole glass of water, and that'll kind of fill you up. And then you're like, okay, I'm just going to, you know, tomorrow morning I'll wake up and start a new day. And then tomorrow when you wake up, you're stuffed. So you weren't hungry then at 9 o'clock at night. You were stuffed. It's all because your mind is playing tricks with you. Your mind saying, oh, let's go ahead and eat, because somehow if we eat and get that taste, that flavor, you know, the world will be better. And the reality of it is it's not going to be better. It's going to be worse. And so the proof in that is when you wake up the next day and you don't wake up, oh, I'm starving. You're going, I'm not even hungry. So I wonder why. So, you know, you have to overcome the mind is what I'm saying, Billy.
Oh, absolutely. I got a lot of emotional triggers with eating. I got to be careful. I will turn into an emotional eater. Do either of you, like when you sit down for your one big meal, I mean, does calories even cross your mind?
Never.
Me neither. I don't count any of that stuff. I just, you know, like today I had a big old 18-ounce porterhouse steak and a couple of eggs, and that's all I had. I had that around 2 o'clock, and when I ate the day before was 2 o'clock. You know, so once I sit down and have that meal, I'm stuffed. I'm like, right now I'm stuffed.
Eventually, I'm going to have to incorporate.
But I would not be stuffed if I. What's that? My internet went down on you a little bit, Billy.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you there. You would not be stuffed at what?
No, go ahead. Repeat your question. Go ahead.
I'm going to have to incorporate exercise.
You know, if I said I would be stuffed. Oh, my internet is just messing up, so I apologize,
okay.
everybody. I would say that if I ate something that would trigger that synopsis for me, like sugar, if I incorporated something that's sweet, then that sweetness is going to want me to eat more and more and more. It's going to raise my levels to the fact that I'm craving that sugar. And so by eating just meat, for meat and eggs, even going to vegetables at times, vegetables bloat cause me to bloat, and I know for Peggy, most of the time it doesn't end well for her either. So I can only imagine what you've gone through with what you've had to ordeal with your intestines and what you've had to deal with your bowels when you're incorporating that kind of stuff into your body.
Anything high in fiber just rips me apart.
Me too.
It's just, it's going to come to a point. I hope it doesn't get worse as I get older, because I do like asparagus with some butter, and you know what I mean. That's one of my favorites. Broccoli with some butter and some salt. I really enjoy that, but I may have to give some of that stuff up. But exercise, I'm going to have to start exercising. I mean, I know Brian exercises regularly, but do you think he would gain weight without exercising, Brian?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know. I do. Well, you had asked me about if I count calories. I don't count calories, but I do sometimes, like if I'm having a non-workout day and it's complete rest, like not even going for a walk or anything, that's sort of in the back of my mind. So I'll eat a little bit lighter on those days, but usually it's because I'm not as hungry. I get hungrier if I exercise.
Eventually, just to get out of the house, I'm going to have to start exercising, walking the dog, riding the bike. I'm going to have to eventually start exercising.
Yeah, but just the fact that you've changed your diet, that is the foundation, really, that everything else is built on. So you will lose the weight eventually just by eating right.
Yeah.
And the exercise and the intermittent fasting are like that's what kicks it into overdrive.
Yeah. Now, I did lose, like when I first with the lessons and you were trying to teach me chords and stuff like that, I couldn't do that. My fingers were too fat. So I was struggling, and now just, that I don't know if that's fat or fluid, but my hands move much better.
It's probably fluid, actually.
So,
yeah, see, well, that's a sign.
I'm just taking all those, I'm not counting on the scale to count my success right now. This time next year, I'd like to come back and say, hey, I lost 75, 100 pounds, whatever. But for right now, I'll take the blood labs. I'll take the A1C being down.
I say that because your numbers are going in the right direction, and the fact that you're even contemplating wanting to go exercise and to do more shows you that you have the energy to want to go do that.
Oh,
and those are all positive signs, Billy.
Mm-hmm. I mean, if there's anybody out there watching, like, if you're upset or mad because you're not losing weight, don't stop, because that's not a mark of success. I mean, if you're like me and you got a lot of ways to go, look at them blood labs. I mean, it's just by eating, you're taking money out of the big pharma's pockets just by changing your diet.
Mm-hmm.
So anybody's listening, don't give up.
Right. No, don't give up. And I think Brian said this earlier, when your numbers come in alignment, when your numbers is like a combination lock, once you get those numbers in the right slots, the lock opens up. Well, same thing's going to happen to you. Once your body gets aligned, then the body's able to function the way it's intended, and it'll start to burn that fat. It'll start being in that ketosis zone.
All those processes they're just starting to get in line, and they're adapting to the right ratios and all that junk. And yeah, exactly.
I hope they sync up and take off.
Well, that would, I mean, the fact that you've taken these steps, Billy, congratulations. The fact that you know what you need to do, and the fact that you've had the courage enough to step out to do it. And the fact that you said that you had to go out and do your own research and do your own work and basically become your own physician. That's what we each need to do. So once you're on that path for yourself, only you know if it's working or not. And so I would say the story that you shared with us, it's working. You're on the right path.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Brian, like I said, I don't know if I hadn't went to that guitar lesson, I don't know what path I would have taken. So if I would have met Brian a long time ago, I may have had a lot different look to me now. But just that chance lesson really kicked this off, and he never once judged me. He never asked me how I got here. He didn't blame me for like doctors. He didn't ask me, well, are you exercising? How much did you drink last night? And he didn't force anything on anybody. It's just he's been a big influence and a great mentor and a great friend. You really have, Brian.
Well, I feel lucky that I'm in a position where people can see what I do, and I try to lead by example.
And that's the best way to lead. The best way to live your life is to live your life pure and let your life speak for itself. And the fact that Brian's doing that has a huge impact on a lot of people.
Yeah, I don't like to force anything down anybody's throat. I just wait till they ask me. It's like, hey, how'd you do that? And then I'll tell them.
How'd you eat that 5-pound prime rib and yet you're only 160 pounds?
Yeah, I know. People they don't believe me.
Take the Brian challenge and see for yourself.
Absolutely. I call it the damage plan. I don't know if we can legally use that, but I call it the damage plan.
I like that, actually.
Because everybody swears I'm doing damage, but it's not really.
Yeah.
Well, listen, do you have any questions for him, Brian? Any more questions for Brian? I mean, for Billy?
I've sort of been following his progress since the beginning, so
I blow Brian's inbox up.
Yeah, but keep chipping away at that intermittent fasting. You'll get over that hump and realize that hunger, a lot of time, it's just temporary. It's almost like I can't explain it. But one thing I used to do early on too is when I feel really hungry at one time, I do like Jim does. I drink water, but I put a little bit of salt in it too. Like salt will curb your appetite, and just the salt and the water together would take that away from me.
Oh, I gotta have my Redmonds. Love my Redmonds. I don't have the licks. I don't suck on the rocks, but I use the salt.
Yeah, I kind of had to back off. I was eating a lot of salt at first, but I think I needed to catch up with my sodium levels. But now I've sort of backed off a little.
Right.
I was telling Jim last week that I was struggling with these headaches, and then I backed off from the salt, and the headaches seemed to have subsided. So I think that might have been it.
It's been a good week this week too, Brian, as far as the headaches go?
Yeah, I think I had one, and I think it was because I still had some of those keto cookies I made over the holidays. They were stashed in there.
The double chocolate? You had the double chocolate ones?
No, I got rid of those. I sent those out, but these were like pumpkin chocolate chip that I made. And there was still 5 left, and I'm like, oh man, I can't have those sitting in there, but I couldn't throw them away, of course. So I put them in a freezer bag and shoved them down in my freezer. So at least I can't just grab them and eat them, like I'd have to thaw it out first. But that'll keep me away from them for a while.
Stick them in the freezer. Oh yeah, there's a good suggestion for you, Bill. Any food you want to eat, just stick it in the freezer so you can suck on it, but you're not going to be able to really eat it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, listen, we want to thank you so much, Billy, for taking the time to come on and share your story with us. We definitely look forward to having you come back. Anytime you get new numbers, let us know. we'd love to have
Absolutely.
your progression and let you share it with others, because that's what it's all about.
I
Yeah.
appreciate you having me.
No problem. Well, everybody, as we always say, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for watching. I'm gonna let Brian take us out of here.
Well, like usual, eat your meat.
We'll see you next week, everybody.
Take care.